There's no video subscription. There was no timestamp on this. So based on their investigation, they believe that the photo could have been taken on January 11th. This is weeks before the kidnapping.
It is day 24 since our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed. We need her to come home. For that reason, we are offering a family reward of up to $1 million for any information that leads us to her recovery.
The FBI told you those images were from the morning of her disappearance, February 1st. One night, one masked man, one doorbell camera. That is what FBI Director Kash Patel said when he released 4 black and white photographs and 2 videos on February 10th. He said law enforcement had uncovered previously inaccessible images showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door, the morning of her disappearance. Those were his words. He was not telling you the whole truth. Sources inside the investigation have now confirmed to ABC News, CBS News, and NBC News that at least one of those images was not taken on February 1st. The photograph showing the suspect without a backpack and without a visible holster was captured by Nancy Guthrie's Nest doorbell camera on a different day, a day before the abduction. The FBI knew this when they released the images. They packaged footage from 2 separate dates together and presented it as a single night. They let the entire country believe the suspect showed up once. He did not show up once. He came back. And that single fact demolishes the most common defense in this case, that this was a random stranger, a crime of opportunity, a drifter who picked the wrong house and got lucky. Because random strangers do not return. Random strangers do not scout a target, leave, and then come back days later with a backpack, a gun, and a plan to remove an 84-year-old woman from her bed in the middle of the night. That is not opportunism. That is an operation. And operations have planners. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 25 days. She is 84 years old. She has a pacemaker. She relies on daily medication. She has limited mobility but is described by her family as mentally sharp and independent. She has lived in her home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson since 1985. That is 41 years in the same house, same neighborhood, same quiet desert roads, same coyotes howling at night. And on the night of January 31st, 2026, someone walked into that home and walked out with her. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She moved to the Tucson area in the early 1970s with her family. Her husband, Charles Guthrie, died at age 49 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico in 1988. She raised 3 children. Savannah, who would become the co-anchor of the Today Show, Annie, who would become a writer and artist in Tucson, and Cameron, who lives in the area as well. For decades, Nancy lived quietly. No celebrity profile, no public persona. A grandmother in the desert who went to church on Sundays and had dinner with her daughter and son-in-law on Friday nights. The kind of person who should never make national news. But here we are. Day 25, and the entire country is watching because the person who took her has not been caught. Here is what we know happened. On the evening of January 31st, Nancy had dinner at the home of her daughter Annie Guthrie and Annie's husband. They ate together, they played games. Normal family evening. At approximately 9:30 to 9:50 p.m., the son-in-law drove Nancy back to her home. He says he confirmed she was safely inside. Then, he drove back to his own house, 4 miles away. A 10-minute drive with no traffic. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, Nancy's Nest doorbell camera was disconnected. Not a glitch, not a power failure. Someone physically disabled it. At 2:12 a.m., another camera on the property detected what the system classified as a person, but no video was available because Nancy did not have active subscriptions on any of her cameras. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker app showed a disconnect from her phone. That disconnect means either her phone was destroyed, moved out of Bluetooth range, or she was physically carried far enough from the device that the signal dropped. 41 minutes. From camera down to pacemaker gone. 41 minutes inside that house. Former FBI profiler Jim Clemente told Fox News that if the suspect's goal was to get in and get out, then he failed. Clemente said the extended time inside suggests the goal may have been something else entirely, or that something went wrong during the operation. 41 minutes is not a burglary. Burglars are in and out in under 10. 41 minutes is someone managing a situation, controlling a person, gathering specific items, dealing with complications, and possibly waiting for a second vehicle or a second person to assist. Her family reported her missing the next day around noon when she did not appear for a virtual church service. That is a 12-hour gap between the pacemaker disconnecting and anyone knowing she was gone. 12 hours of head start. In 12 hours, you can drive to Los Angeles. You can drive to El Paso. You can drive to the Mexican border in under 90 minutes. Now let me tell you what investigators found. Blood on the porch, confirmed to be Nancy's. Signs of disturbance near the entrance. The doorbell camera physically removed from its mount. Inside the home, biological evidence. DNA that does not belong to Nancy, does not belong to anyone in her family, and does not belong to anyone close to her. The sheriff's department has not disclosed where in the home this DNA was recovered. They have said only that it is being analyzed at a private lab in Florida. Sources told CBS News there are concerns the sample may not yield a usable profile because it was mixed with Nancy's own DNA. That mixing suggests sustained physical contact, the kind of contact that happens during a confrontation, a struggle, a forced removal. Separately, a glove was found approximately 2 miles from the home in a field near the roadside. It was one of 16 gloves recovered during the search, but most of the others belonged to investigators who had discarded them during evidence collection. This particular glove appeared to visually match the ones worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage. DNA from an unknown male was extracted from inside it. That profile was run through CODIS, the FBI's National Criminal Database. No match. It was also compared to the DNA found inside the home. No match there either. 2 different people left biological evidence connected to this crime. 2 profiles. 2 unknowns. The sheriff has said publicly and repeatedly that he has not ruled out the possibility that more than one person was involved. Now let me tell you about the footage itself. Because the images the FBI released are not just evidence of a crime, they are evidence of preparation. In the photographs where the suspect has his backpack, he's wearing a black ski mask, black nitrile gloves, dark clothing, sneakers, and a belly band holster for a handgun worn in an unusual position near the center of his waist. Former firearms expert John Correa told NBC News that the holster appears to be a cheap universal fit model, and that this does not strike him as a highly trained professional. The backpack is a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack. CBS News first reported that it is sold exclusively at Walmart. The sheriff called it one of the most promising leads in the case. Walmart has provided records of every Ozark Trail hiker pack sold across Arizona over the past several months, and investigators are reviewing security footage from local stores to match purchases to faces. The suspect's clothing, including the ski mask, may also have been purchased at Walmart. The sheriff noted a mask sold at the retailer looks very similar to the one in the footage. The The total cost of everything this man was wearing is probably under $100. A budget kidnapping kit assembled from the country's largest retailer. If you wanted to build a profile of this suspect based on his gear alone, you would say low sophistication, low income, impulsive. You would not say science teacher. But then there is the image without the backpack, the one from the earlier visit. In that photograph, the suspect is dressed similarly, but is not carrying equipment. He appears to be observing, learning, looking at the camera. One theory from sources familiar with the investigation is that the suspect approached the door the first time, noticed the camera, and was scared off. He then returned on February 1st, this time prepared to disable it. That theory is interesting, but it is not the only explanation, because if the suspect was scared off by the camera on the earlier visit, why did he come back at all? A stranger who spots a camera and gets spooked does not typically return to the same house days later. A stranger finds a different target, a house without cameras, a house where nobody is watching. The only reason to return to a house with cameras after discovering they exist is if that specific house is the only acceptable target. If the victim cannot be substituted, if the plan requires this woman at this address and no one else will do. That is not a stranger. That is someone with a specific reason to target Nancy Guthrie. And there is another date the public has not been told enough about. The Pima County Sheriff's Department asked residents to submit surveillance footage, going as far back as January 1st. But they specifically flagged two dates, January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight, and January 31st between 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. January 31st makes sense. That is the day Nancy disappeared. Investigators want to see who was in the neighborhood that morning. But January 11th? What happened on January 11th? Why is the sheriff asking for footage from a 3-hour window on a night 20 days before the kidnapping? That date has not been explained. It has not been addressed at a press conference. It has not been reported on in detail by any major outlet. It is just sitting there, a flagged date with no public context. And if it turns out the suspect was also active in the area on January 11th, then the scouting timeline extends to 3 weeks before the abduction, at minimum. And then there is January 23rd, 8 days before Nancy vanished. A homeowner in Tucson posted a video to the Ring Neighbors app showing a man at their front door at approximately 3:30 a.m. and again at 5 a.m. The home is 6.5 miles from Nancy's residence. The man was walking backward, not stumbling, not drunk, deliberately reversing into the camera's detection zone so the lens would capture the back of his head instead of his face, during the 1 to 2 second startup window that consumer cameras need to begin recording. When the homeowner's dogs barked, the man fled. TMZ confirmed the FBI is treating this footage as a potential lead. The backpack the man was wearing appears visually identical to the Ozark Trail pack seen on Nancy's porch. Let me explain to you why walking backward matters. Because this is the detail that separates a criminal from a professional. Ring and Nest cameras do not record 24 hours a day. They sleep. They rely on passive infrared sensors to detect body heat and motion. When a person enters the detection zone, the sensor wakes up the processor. The lens adjusts to the low-light environment. The Wi-Fi module establishes a handshake with the cloud server. That takes 1 to 2 seconds. If you walk forward, the camera captures your face during that boot-up window. If you walk backward, those critical opening frames show nothing but the back of your hoodie. By the time the lens is fully active, your face is shielded. You are physically exploiting the hardware delay with your body position. Nobody does this by accident. Nobody figures this out in the moment. This is researched behavior. This is someone who studied how these cameras work, understood their vulnerability, and designed a physical countermeasure. And when the dog barked, watch what happened. The man fled but maintained his backward orientation. He suppressed the instinct to turn toward the sound. He would rather trip and fall backward than give the camera a single frame of his face. That level of discipline, that level of rehearsed commitment to a technique, tells you this is not the first time he practiced it. The house on January 23rd was 6.5 miles from Nancy's home. Both are in the northern Tucson suburbs. Both feature isolated desert properties with long driveways. Both have the same dark sky ordinances, meaning minimal street lighting. In investigative terms, this is called a buffer zone. Far enough from the real target that getting caught does not immediately create a connection. Close enough to replicate the exact environmental conditions. Same gravel, same darkness, same camera technology, same neighborhood response time. He was not testing a random house. He was rehearsing for a specific one. Compare the man on January 23rd to the man on February 1st. On January 23rd, he is terrified, hunched, walking backward, paranoid about every pixel. On February 1st, he is walking forward, upright, calm. He approaches the door and reaches toward the camera with a gesture so casual it looks habitual. In 8 days, his psychological posture transformed completely. That transformation has a name: confidence earned through successful rehearsal. The January 23rd test taught him that his method worked. The police did not come. The camera did not catch his face. The dog barked, and nobody came outside. He learned he was invisible. And that confidence is what allowed him to walk forward on the night he took Nancy. So let me lay the timeline out for you. January 11th, flagged by the sheriff, no explanation. January 23rd, a man conducting a camera countermeasure test at a house 6.5 miles from the target. Before February 1st, the suspect at Nancy's actual front door without equipment, scouting the camera. February 1st, the suspect returns with a backpack, a gun, a holster, gloves, a mask, and a plan. At 1:47 a.m., the camera goes dark. By 2:28 a.m., Nancy is gone. Now let me tell you what they have been doing to find her, because the technology they have deployed tells you how serious this is. Law enforcement sources told CBS News that investigators have been using a device called a signal sniffer mounted on a helicopter. This is a Bluetooth tracking tool that can detect signals from Nancy's pacemaker. The idea is to fly low and slow over the desert landscape, scanning for the specific Bluetooth frequency her pacemaker uses to communicate with her phone. If the pacemaker is still functioning and Nancy is within range, the sniffer should detect it. A company called Blue Fly confirmed it is providing this technology, saying it gives first responders a heat map to identify signals within a search area. They have not found the signal. President Trump publicly criticized investigators for disclosing the sniffer's existence, saying that if the kidnapper knows they are searching for the pacemaker, bad things could happen. He has a point. If the person holding Nancy understands that her pacemaker is a tracking device, they have every incentive to destroy it, or to destroy the person wearing it. That disclosure may have been the single most dangerous leak in this investigation. The ransom situation is its own disaster. Multiple notes have been sent to media outlets demanding cryptocurrency. TMZ received the first communication early in the investigation. It demanded millions of dollars in Bitcoin and included a wallet address. When investigators looked at the blockchain ledger, there was no large transfer. There was a single transaction of under $300 sent to the wallet. The FBI uses this technique, sending a small amount and monitoring the wallet for activity. The moment someone accesses it, their device fingerprint, IP address, and location are captured. That wallet has remained completely silent. Nobody has touched it. Additional ransom communications followed. A fourth email to TMZ claimed the sender knew what they saw south of the border and was told to shut up. One man was actually charged with sending a fake ransom threat. The FBI said he was trying to profit from the case with no actual connection to the disappearance. The real communications, if any of them are real, have not yielded a confirmed contact between the kidnapper and the family. The Guthries have said publicly that they are willing to pay. They said, "We will pay," and nobody has collected. Think about what that tells you. If this was a professional ransom operation, they would have established proof of life within hours. They would have shown a video of Nancy holding a newspaper. They would have negotiated terms. They would have moved the money. But none of that has happened. Either the kidnapper does not actually want money, and the ransom is a misdirection designed to make investigators chase a financial motive that does not exist. Or the kidnapper is too afraid to access the Bitcoin wallet because they know it is a trap. Either way, this does not look like a professional operation. It looks like someone who is smart enough to set up the framework of a ransom, but too inexperienced to execute the follow-through. Now let me go back to the 2 DNA profiles, because this is the detail that should keep whoever did this awake at night. The DNA from the glove and the DNA from inside the house come from 2 different people. Neither matches anyone in the family. Neither matches anyone in CODIS. Sheriff Nanos has said that the lab process could take up to a year because there are challenges separating the biological mixture found at the home. But even if the lab results take a year, the genealogy track is running in parallel. Investigative genetic genealogy is the same technique that caught the Golden State Killer after 40 years. The same technique that identified Brian Kohberger in the Idaho murders. Even if the suspect has never personally submitted DNA to a service like 23andMe, a second cousin or a great aunt might have. And from that partial match, investigators can build family trees, branch by branch, generation by generation, until those branches narrow to one name. 2 profiles means 2 family trees, 2 sets of relatives who might be in a genealogy database. The probability that neither person in a 2-person operation has a single family member in any public database is extraordinarily low. 1 profile is hard to hide from. 2 is a mathematical death sentence. It is only a matter of time. That is not a crime of opportunity. That is 3 weeks of preparation by someone who had the patience, the discipline, and the access to study one specific house belonging to one specific woman. And now I need to ask the question that the sheriff does not want anyone asking. Who had that kind of access? The last person to see Nancy alive is her son-in-law. He drove her home. He walked her to the door. He says he confirmed she was inside. Then he went home. 4 miles, 10 minutes. And for the next 3 hours and 57 minutes, there is no confirmed public account of where he was or what he was doing. At 1:47 a.m., someone disconnected the camera he had walked past 4 hours earlier. Someone who knew exactly where it was. Someone who knew it was not recording to the cloud. Someone who knew the gate at the front of the house. Someone who moved through that space with the confidence of a person who had been there hundreds of times before. Body language experts who reviewed the FBI footage said the suspect demonstrates what criminal profilers call ownership behavior. He does not search for the camera, he walks directly to it. He does not hesitate at the door. He moves with purpose and familiarity. He reaches out and taps the camera lens in a gesture analysts described as habitual, like someone touching a light switch on the way out of a room. Like someone who has passed that camera so many times that reaching toward it is reflex, not strategy. That man has been to that house before. Not once, not twice, many times. The footage proves it. And the FBI knew it proved it when they packaged footage from 2 different dates and released it as a single night. I am not going to name the son-in-law in this video. Not yet, that is coming. But I want you to understand the architecture of this case before I start putting names on it. Because when I do name him, when I walk through his background, his profession, his inner circle, his financial relationship to this family, and his silence over the last 25 days, you are going to understand why the FBI has visited his home more times than any other location in this investigation. 5 visits, maybe 6. Fox News cameras captured federal agents leaving that house carrying a brown paper bag. In forensic evidence handling, paper bags are used for biological material, items that contain DNA. You use paper instead of plastic because plastic traps moisture and degrades the genetic evidence. Whatever was in that bag, agents believed it contained something biological that needed to be preserved for the lab. His wife's car was towed and impounded. Their septic tank was examined. Security cameras were removed from their property. Neighbors have been interviewed repeatedly, with agents asking specifically about the couple's behavior and routines. The sheriff cleared the entire family on February 16th. He said they are victims, not suspects. He said suggesting otherwise is cruel. And maybe he is right. Maybe they are victims. Maybe everything I just described has a perfectly innocent explanation. But clearing someone is an investigative status, not a final verdict. It means the current evidence does not support charges. It does not mean new evidence will not change that. And in high-profile cases, publicly clearing a suspect can be a deliberate, tactical choice. It relieves pressure. It stops the media circus outside the house. And it can make a guilty person feel safe enough to make a mistake. Here is where this case stands right now. 25 days, no suspect named, no arrest. 2 DNA profiles from 2 unknown males. $1 million reward from the Guthrie family. Over 55,000 calls to the sheriff's department. Over 21,000 tips to the FBI. 400 investigators working the case. Genetic genealogy underway. Walmart purchase records under review. Gun stores being visited with photos of the holster. The suspect's shoes, pants, shirt, and jacket close to being identified. And a private lab in Florida trying to separate DNA from a biological mixture that may take up to a year to process. Let me tell you how bad the tip situation has gotten. The 911 communications center has been completely overwhelmed. The Pima County dispatch manager went on the record pleading with the public to stop calling unless their information is credible and actionable. She said what they do not need are opinions, thoughts, theories, and people wondering whether investigators are doing their jobs. In the first 18 days of February, the department received over 31,000 calls. More than 23,000 of those were administrative. People calling the non-emergency line to share hunches and psychic visions and Reddit threads. That is 23,000 calls clogging the system while investigators are trying to find an 84-year-old woman in the desert. The investigation itself is shifting. The first 2 weeks were a surge. 400 people on the ground, search and rescue teams, canine units, drones, helicopters, Customs and Border Protection. That phase is winding down. ABC News reported that the best leads are coming up empty, and the case may enter a new phase with reduced resources. That means the mass search is ending and the case is transitioning to a long-term task force model. Fewer boots on the ground, more lab work. More data analysis, more waiting. And there is one incident that tells you everything about how chaotic this investigation has become. On February 13th, a SWAT team hit a property in the Tucson area. They detained a man named Luke Daly, his 77-year-old mother, and a DoorDash driver named Carlos Palazuelos, who happened to be making a delivery at the wrong time. All 3 were released without charges within hours. The lawyer for the detained individuals confirmed there was no connection to the Guthrie case. But the internet had already decided otherwise. Within minutes of the raid, social media exploded with claims that the people detained were the son-in-law and his mother. That was not true. It was completely fabricated. But it spread because the public is so desperate for an arrest that they will believe anything that looks like progress. That desperation is dangerous. It leads to wrongful accusations. It wastes investigative resources. And it gives the actual suspect comfort, because every false lead the FBI has to chase down is time they are not spending on the real trail. But here is what gives me hope. The clothing is close to being identified. Sheriff Nanos told NBC News on February 22nd that investigators are getting closer to identifying every article of clothing the suspect was wearing: shoes, pants, shirt, jacket. That means they are working with manufacturers. They are narrowing brands, styles, sizes. And once they identify the specific items, they can run purchase records. The same way they are tracking the Ozark Trail backpack through Walmart, they will track the shoes through whatever retailer sold them, the jacket through whatever brand made it. Each item is another database. Each database is another set of receipts. Each receipt is another face on a security camera. The holster is being shown to gun shops across Tucson. The sheriff described it as having pretty unique characteristics. The FBI compiled a list of approximately 24 photographs and is visiting local dealers, asking if anyone recognizes the holster or the customer who bought it. One gun shop owner confirmed to NBC News that the FBI visited him with this list. That holster is distinctive enough that someone who sold it might remember the buyer. And if that buyer paid with a credit card, the case is over. The net is closing. Slowly, painfully slowly. But it is closing. And the person or people responsible for taking Nancy Guthrie are sitting somewhere right now, watching that net tighten, knowing that every piece of evidence they left behind is being processed, analyzed, and traced back to its source. Savannah Guthrie posted a video yesterday, day 24. She was crying. She said every hour and minute and second and every long night has been agony. She said the family still believes in a miracle. She said they are blowing on the embers of hope. And then she said something that stopped me. She said they know their mother may already be gone, that if she is in heaven, they will accept it. That is a family preparing for the worst. And while they prepare, the man who dropped Nancy off on the night of January 31st has not said a single public word, not a statement, not a plea, not an interview, not a social media post. Every other family member has gone on camera. Savannah has posted multiple videos. Her brother Cameron has spoken directly to the kidnapper. Her sister Annie has cooperated fully. But the son-in-law? The last person to see Nancy alive? The man whose house the FBI keeps returning to? Silence. Complete silence. In the next video, I am going to tell you everything about him. His name, his profession, his connections, his financial relationship to this family, the document he signed 8 months before the kidnapping, the band he plays in, and the criminal record of the man who plays next to him. And the reason that every fact in this case, from the nitrile gloves to the disabled camera to the 41 minutes inside the house, fits one profile more precisely than any other. But for now, I want you to sit with what I just showed you. The FBI released footage from 2 different dates and told you it was from one night. The suspect visited that house before. He studied it. He came back prepared. And the person who drove Nancy home 4 hours before she disappeared has not opened his mouth since. Share this video. Drop a comment telling me what you think. And subscribe, because what I am about to release next is going to change how you see this entire case.